Hey, welcome to The Explainer. You know, from the cereal you had this morning to the soda you might drink later, thousands, even millions of identical products are rolling off assembly lines every single day. But have you ever stopped to wonder how a company figures out the actual costs of just one of those items? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain and look at the hidden accounting that makes mass production possible.
So let's dive right in with this question. Just think about a factory making millions of vitamin pills. They're all exactly the same. How in the world do they calculate the precise cost of the ingredients, the labor, and even the electricity that went into making just a single pill? I mean, it seems almost impossible, right? But believe it or not, there's a whole system built for this.
And that system has a name: process costing. It's the perfect accounting tool designed to solve this exact challenge of, costing the clones.
Okay, so here's the official definition. The two big keywords you really want to remember are homogeneous products, which is just a fancy way of saying they're all identical, and series of processes. Just picture an assembly line. Every single item goes through the exact same steps, and it gets the same little dose of costs added at each stage along the way.
Now, to really get what this is, it kind of helps to know what it isn't, and its opposite is something called job order costing. So if you're building a unique, one-of-a-kind custom car or you're filming a movie, you track all the costs for that one specific job. But if you're making millions of identical vitamins or cans of soda, you use process costing. It all just comes down to this: is the product unique or is it uniform?
So how does this actually work in the real world? Well, to really understand it, we need to do a little forensic accounting. We need to follow the money as a product physically makes its way through the factory. And this diagram of our vitamin factory is perfect. You'll notice it's broken down into departments. You've got mixing, then encapsulating, and finally, bottling. Here's the key. In process costing, we don't track the cost of each individual pill. Instead, we track the total costs that get piled up in each of these departments over a specific time, like a month.
Okay, so it all kicks off in the mixing department. This is where the company throws in the cost of all the raw ingredients, the herbs, the vitamins, the minerals, plus the cost of the labor to run those big mixers, and a slice of the factory overhead, like the lights and rent for that department. All those costs get pooled together right here.
Right, so once that vitamin powder is all mixed up, it moves on to the encapsulating department. And this part is absolutely critical. The costs from the mixing department are transferred in right along with the powder. Then, this department adds its own new costs. You've got the empty capsules, more labor to run the machines, more overhead. You see how the total cost is starting to build up? And you guessed it, the process just repeats again. The encapsulated vitamins, now carrying all the costs from both mixing and encapsulating, move over to bottling. And here the costs for the bottles, the caps, and the workers on the bottling line all get added to the pile. So the final cost of a finished bottle is literally the sum of all the costs from every single department it passed through. Now, all of that sounds pretty logical, right? It seems straightforward. But here's where things get a little tricky. This is the puzzle that makes process costing a real brain teaser for accountants. You'd think you could just take the total cost you spent for the month and divide that by the number of vitamins you made. Seems simple enough, but unfortunately that's not quite right.
Because think about it. What happens when the clock hits midnight on the last day of the month? Over in the encapsulating department, you might have thousands of pills that have all the ingredients mixed, but they haven't been bottled yet. They're not finished. So how do you possibly account for these half-finished units, what accountants call work-in-process inventory?
And the solution to this puzzle is this really clever accounting concept called equivalent units of production. So instead of just counting physical units, some of which are finished, some aren't, we figure out a way to measure the total amount of work that was done, and we express that work in terms of fully completed units. Here's the easiest way to think about it. If you have two vitamins that are each halfway through the encapsulating process, you can say that the work you've put in is the same as or equivalent to finishing one complete vitamin. So by converting all the work into these equivalent units, we can finally do the math correctly. Pretty smart, huh?
So once we've figured out our equivalent units, there are basically two main methods that companies use to do the final cost calculation.
First, there's the weighted average method. It's the simpler one. It basically just mushes together the costs from last month's unfinished stuff with all of this month's new costs. Then you have the FIFO method. That stands for first in, first out. It's way more precise because it keeps the old costs separate from the new costs. Really, it's just a classic business choice. Do you want simplicity or do you want precision?
Now, don't worry, we are not going to do all the math here. You are very welcome. But the end goal of all these tricky calculations is to create this one document, and it's called a production report. And on that report is the magic number every manager is looking for, the cost per equivalent unit. This is it. This is the true cost of producing one finished item during that period.
So you might be thinking, why do companies go through all this trouble? I mean, who really cares about the cost of one vitamin pill? Well, it matters. It matters a whole lot. It's what connects the day-to-day action on the factory floor directly to the company's overall financial health.
And here's exactly why it is so critical. Getting that number right is absolutely vital. For one, it tells you the correct value of your inventory to put on your financial statements. It also tells you exactly how to price your product so you can actually make a profit. It helps you spot which departments might be wasting money, and it lets you see how efficiently each part of your factory is really running. See? It's not just some boring accounting exercise. It is a crucial tool for running a business.
So the next time you pick up a bottle of vitamins, or a box of cereal, or a can of soda, you'll know. You'll know about the complex journey of calculations that went into figuring out its price. It's a whole story of transferred costs, equivalent units, and production reports. So my question for you is, what will you see differently now when you look at that price tag on the shelf?